Novo lit that shit bang.
Welcome back, everybody, to Crows of Judgment, and today, unfortunately, Narrator has decided not to do a stream, not to respond to the allegations, somewhat. Instead, I want you to focus on this one tweet, and then we'll jump into everything. But before we do, please consider subscribing to the channel and dropping a like on this video if you enjoy our content. And if you want to further support us, Patreon link is in the description below, and the join button is available as well. But as you can see here, so on January 16th, this response was put up as part of a 3-tweet thread by Narrator talking about how the allegations against him were BS. The Google Docs were BS. They made fun of his mommy, a whole bunch of stuff, right? And it was basically filled with attitudes like this. I'll see you all tomorrow at around 10 to 11 p.m., and then I will go back to playing Minecraft on Drunk SMP. But F you, Riley, I wish I cut you off sooner, no pun intended. Now, the reason why he said no pun intended was because at the top, he had talked about how he was going to talk about, depression, self-harm, seppuku tendencies, that sort of thing. And yeah, as you can see here, guy's kind of dishonest, right? Now, there is a little bit more to this, but we do have the Twitlonger to go through. And I want you to see the very different nature of these things. So this is January 16th, okay? And this is January 16th. My response read, replies are locked, 98 likes, 57 quote tweets, 7 retweets. But you can't comment on what he's actually saying. And apparently he's been going through his YouTube account and deleting comments to his videos as well. But let's go into the Twitlonger. My response, currently there are many allegations against me of my past behaviors. While I do not agree with everything that is being said against me, for the sake of the people who I have hurt in the past, I won't be dragging this on any further. There are some people that I have hurt and that only now I am realizing the weight of my actions. I would like to apologize to everyone whom I have hurt and for all the lapses in judgment I have made over the last 5 years. So it starts off well, right? I want to make it very clear. I am not blaming my mental health for any of my actions, nor will I ever. I think that doing so would only be disingenuous, be harmful to the mental health community as a whole. I also want to make it very clear that while I have been irresponsible with my platform that I have given, I have never at any point had any sort of sexual relations or attractions to anyone underage. I still stand by the belief that those behaviors are despicable and unacceptable. Now, I want to be very clear here. In both Google Docs, we can see that Narrator engages in highly sexually charged conversations with minors and has done so on several occasions. And let me highlight one tweet by Narrator here. You're right. That's why I, 17, asked them if it would be okay for me to make a fan sign throwaway Twitter account, but I never sent it to anyone. I just tweeted on said throwaway. Like I said, I'll address it all tomorrow. He's not going to address this one because people talked to him about how he had sent out a photo of his own ass, which has been shown to the audience already, so we're not going to have to do that today. But, here's a little hint. Most of that Google Doc is full of BS that misrepresents reality, but you'll know more tomorrow. Okay, to be clear here, right? The fan sign thing, the throwaway Twitter account, there was a Twitter account called I Love Scotty Uwu. Scotty Uwu was the Twitter account. And Narrator wanted to do a fan sign for them and contacted the user. The user said, yeah, sure. So Narrator made the alt account I Love Scotty Uwu, took a photo of his own ass in women's underwear, and then would follow the Scotty Uwu account and reply to all of their tweets with the photo of his ass. When you hear it from Narrator, it sounds very tame. Oh, it was just a joke. It was just a joke. It wasn't anything serious. The Google Doc is really blowing it up. But one thing I kind of want to highlight, he goes, that's why I, 17, asked him if it would be okay. He did this when he was 18. I don't know why he feels the need to lie, right? Because, the person was 15 at the time. I'm not going to get all up in this guy's business about, a 3-year age gap or anything. What I will say is that person didn't want the photos. And that Narrator in the Google Doc, you can see, begs them not to come forward And the person on the other end is just like, I just don't want the drama, so sure. And eventually, after it became too many times being asked, told narrator to, basically pound sand. So, yeah, I kind of feel like that's important context to this whole thing. But you're not going to see him bring up that accusation or that story at all in this. Over the years, I've been a bad friend to many people, Carson, having held my aggressive personality with pride and not thinking about the effects that my actions can have on other people. This is wrong. I would like to own up to that now. I've gone through many changes in my life over the past few years, and I feel that I am a mostly different person than I was even 3 years ago. But I cannot change the past or what has already been done. Something that I have realized the most is that I need to have more self-control. I need to stop treating everyone as if they are just another person to talk to and fuck around with. This mentality has led me to irresponsibly talk to people and act like a dick to many people and disregard social norms while I communicate or make jokes at the expense of others. Just recently, right, before the second Google Doc came out on Narrator had this, the big dick energy and was calling this whole thing, BS, lies, misinformation, was making puns about self-harm, talking about 13-year-olds saying that they could, F off. As recently as this year has, engaged in these behaviors. So I'm not entirely sure what he means by he's changed, but it doesn't really seem that is true in any way, shape, or form. But let's continue. People who have known me personally will tell you that I will act and behave around anyone almost the same, be them 14 or 34. Well, one of these individuals was 13, sir. So stop with... I get that's not an actual lie or anything, right? But, one of these individuals, the one that you are going to address in this Twitlonger is the 13-year-old you were doing this with. You've already lied about, doing the ass fan sign and kind of like stalking the person and saying that you were 17, and that's not true either. So stop lying when you're barely going to address what you're being accused of. And in looking back at my younger self, I know now just how wrong that mentality is. Sure you do. Once I view someone as a good friend, I view them as someone I can freely talk to them almost anything, to the point of oversharing and ruining some friendships with people that I cherish very much and regret the chances of interactions that I've missed out on due to this mindset. I have also unknowingly hurt people by having this outlook on the world, and I have been working on myself to be better at this over the last year, but that does not forgive or make my previous behavior acceptable by any means. So, we're gonna focus on this really fast. This is what people are calling so hypocritical. I mean, this stuff is coming out on January 16th. He did this video January 7th, right? An hour-long video about what a terrible person his good buddy Call Me Carson was. The person that he put together a Google Doc on, right? Sorry, not Google Doc. A folder that he had for 3 years, right? 3 years planning to cancel his friend. Does an hour-long video talking about what an awful person he is and addressing the allegations against Carson. Now, one thing I thought was pretty funny is that, after this video, I guess he said that a bunch of people came forward and said, yeah, Carson was totally gaslighting you to me. After I've seen everything come out, I don't think Call Me Carson was gaslighting anybody. I think Call Me Carson was telling people to stay away from Narrator because Narrator is effing insane. Jesus. When I was just starting out, I was very much a clout chaser, as anyone on Twitter or Discord from 2016 2017 can tell you, and this was a very toxic mentality to have. Thankfully now I have bettered myself at this behavior, but it was very much a factor for my first few years on the platform. Back then I viewed any opportunity to get attention, views, or interaction with something I should do, not thinking how it would make me look or how that would make others feel. That sense of needing the spotlight or attention of others took a long time for me to truly get free from, and affected my judgment on many of my actions that I still think about and regret to this day. Okay, so he says he got better, and he says he used to be a clout chaser, and he used to make himself the center of attention and need the spotlight and everything. And and he's changed now, but then, there's this video with 456,000 views, my experience with Call Me Carson, right, which is an hour long, of him whining and crying like a child about Carson. So, yeah. And the thing is, if you watch the whole thing, Narrator admits to, trying to assault people, which is what led others to not wanting to work with him anymore. He talks about how they made fun of his mental illness, and then later says that, well, he wasn't actually diagnosed, and also that he would play up episodes to get a laugh out of people. So, yeah, I kind of feel like the guy hasn't really changed at all, and he's the exact same person. And the Google Doc even showed that when he was being accused of this stuff, he was trying to hype up his stream about it until the second one dropped, and he ran away like the child that Narrator has always been. Now, on to my friendship with Riley, because that is arguably the most damaging and serious accusation out of anything. We met near the beginning of my forte on YouTube. They were my first true stan. When we first started DMing, our friendship started almost immediately, and we were talking basically every single day. I want to note that I was 17 when we first met. That's true. And I never bothered to ask for their age because I didn't see it as necessary. I just assumed that they were a year or two younger than me, since they acted like a few people I knew in high school at the time. It turns out they were 5 years younger. Imagine that. They drew artwork of me, and it was something that I appreciated immensely and wanted to use my platform to help boost them and their art to anyone who would listen. Over the next few months, our friendship only got stronger. I viewed him as someone I could rely on to talk through any of my problems that I was going through, and I am deeply sorry to you, Riley, that I ever put you in a position where you viewed my depression as your problem. Now I've already played I've already showed the F you Riley and then him making a pun on self-harm. But how about this tweet now? I'm just letting people know I'm going to be going over sensitive topics and letting Riley know I'm going over all the emotional baggage they dropped at my feet with how constantly they would show me their cuts, talk about how they are seppuku friendly, etc. They're one of the single greatest emotional drains on me I've ever experienced. I tried my best to be there for them, but F that, I guess. See you tomorrow, Sen. And of course, that actually never happened. Now, he goes on to say, a good portion of it is BS in terms of the Google Docs. The first Google Doc, I guess the second one he never really commented on. And then, of course, as well, here's a little hint. Most of that Google Doc is full of BS that misrepresents reality, but more tomorrow. So, again, he's accused Riley of being the one who has sent the self-harm images and talked about depression. And, I mean, one thing he admits here is that he was the one who actually was talking about his depression with Riley. Riley has said, Narrator was sending him those images, right? And, Riley being much younger than Narrator, 5 years younger, when the relationship ends, Narrator is 18 and they are 13. But imagine when it starts, Riley was either 12 or had just turned 13, because this went on for quite a few months. But neither here nor there as far as this goes. We already know that relationship was highly inappropriate. After my initial exposure of my self-harming and depressive episodes, so that would be Riley accusing him of doing that, Riley made me some art of both their persona and myself hugging where you could see cuts on my arms. I never asked for this, but I did feel like I could connect to the drawings and appreciate them very much and express it to Riley. It made me feel better, and it helped me get through that dark time in my life. Shortly after, though, Riley informed me of their own history of self-harming. This hits me hard because at the time I very much viewed Riley as a good friend, and hearing this from them made me deeply worried and concerned for their well-being. Okay, I don't know if that's true or not, because until this Twitlonger, Narrator was accusing Riley of being the one sending him those images, and Riley being the one dropping all of their self-harm tendencies and everything at him. So now he's saying, well, yeah, I totally was, talking about my depression with them and, talking about self-harm with them and sending them self-harm stuff. But, Riley later on went to do it. So I was like, I don't believe you at this point. Right. And if I did, then all I can say is I got an 18-year-old adult with a 13-year-old kid. Right. 5-year age gap is way too much for me. Right. But I have someone who's 5 years older than somebody, and that person who's younger is a fan, and you're sending them self-harm stuff. I would imagine that might be a factor in their need to impress you, potentially. So I don't know. Even if I believe you, I'm not too sure that makes Riley look like a bad person. It just, I don't know. I don't know, but it grosses me out that you actively lied about it and now casually admit to it in here and then go back to blaming Riley. It was after this point that I switched from that role of being a friend to Riley and going to the role of an older brother. Someone that they knew they could always talk to and someone who would always be there for them. I would have done anything to protect and care for him in his darkest hours, and I wanted him to know that any chance I could tell him. When I told Riley either publicly or privately that I loved him, I meant it with every fiber in my being. They were like a little brother to me, and while it may be cringy to see or hear about in Twitter videos or in tweets, that's how much I cared about him at the time. I love you. I want to see you. You need me. Knife emoji, heart emoji, knife emoji. I want to be with you. Yeah. It wasn't just the I love you. It was the entire nature of that relationship that Narrator is being criticized for, as well as the, situation with the 15-year-old that he stalked and kept sending photos of his ass to, as well as the situation with the 14-year-old on Discord who was a fan of his that, he pressured making an NSFW channel because he would not stop sharing, adult content. I'm not talking about lewds. I mean, like actual adult content with other minors in his general chat. And the 14-year-old fan didn't want to upset Narrator because, again, they were a fan of Narrator. And of course, Narrator in his own server distributing a folder of hentai and other adult content images with everybody in the general chat. And I mean, at this point, Narrator has to know that he has a young fan base, or at least minors that watch his content, because the situation that went on with Riley and the situation that went on with the 15-year-old fan and the 14-year-old fan. So I just, yeah, buddy. It's like everything. It's not just this one. And this story makes you look dishonest, deceptive, and disgusting. They were like a little brother to me, and well, maybe crazy or hear about I have never viewed Riley as anything more than like a brother to me. I've never been interested in Riley sexually or had any desire to be with Riley, except you did a video saying that you wanted to go see them. Anytime where I've ever played into this ship or dismissed it as memes, it was purely because I was desperate for any kind of positive attention at the time, and I saw people doing responsive to it, so I made jokes about Narrator times Riley. Inappropriate. In retrospect, I wish I would have never done this, but I can't change what has already been done. Silent X was Riley's boyfriend at that time and someone who I never really got along with much. This is not because I was jealous, but because we had conflicting personalities and I viewed him as very annoying. We just never got along publicly or privately. There was nothing more to it other than the fact that we just hated each other. I don't believe you. I don't believe you. Now to address why I stopped talking to Riley. When I said that it was because he was an emotional drain on me, I 100% meant it. It is something that I've repeated time and time again over the years because I can't say enough how draining the last little bit of talking to him. Nearing the time before I cut off Riley completely, our conversations devolved from day to day talking about life and what's going on to Riley telling me almost every day about how depressed they were and how they would cut themselves constantly. So now he goes to throw Riley under the bus for the self-harm. But again, originally he did that and then went on to say that he was the one doing it. So I don't believe Narrator when he says these things about Riley and that Riley's the one reason why that things kind of stopped, because around the same time he was being outed for the 15-year-old and was begging the 15-year-old not to come forward. So yeah, I would say there's a whole mix of factors, but none of them look positive for Narrator at all. And again, we have 3 minors who he's engaging with in sexual ways. And it all just comes across as gross and creepy and disgusting and disturbing. And all he can do with this Google Doc is respond to one of those people, not the other 2. And the one that he's responding to, he does it in a pretty poor way, given that he started off just the day prior telling this kid, F off, making a pun about self-harm, and then saying, it was the kid sending him those images, not the other way around, which he admits to doing in this Twitlonger. Nearing the time before I cut off Riley completely, our conversations all day-to-day, yada yada. I myself was not very emotionally stable at the time as it was, so hearing how someone I viewed as my little brother was hurting themselves and there was absolutely nothing I could do about it. That hurt me a lot. At first, I was thinking it was just a phase, and maybe he would stop if I was supportive enough to him and let him know I was here for him. But he didn't. After a while, seeing that he was cutting himself and how his depression was tearing him apart, was tearing me apart, and it wasn't healthy for me to stay in that friendship anymore. I couldn't mentally take seeing it all the time, so I left. Which, I mean, that's funny because then you went off to like brag about having blocked this person and their boyfriend. So I don't believe anything that you are saying in here, you lying, deceptive asshole. Does that make me a shitty friend? It makes you a shitty human being. You could argue that, sure. It makes you a shitty human being. I don't think there's an argument for it. But I never viewed him as anything more than that, a friend. To everyone I have ever hurt, I am truly deeply sorry. Then address all of it. Do your fucking stream, you absolute coward. I'll be taking some time away to reflect on my actions and to continue to better myself as a person. Thank you for hearing my side. Go fuck yourself, narrator. So thank you so much for admitting that you were being highly inappropriate with a 13-year-old. Thank you so much for admitting that you're the one who was sending the self-harm images to said 13-year-old. And you know, you're 5 years older than this individual. And also, personally, thank you for also bringing up the gross, disturbing, and disgusting fact, right? The gross, disturbing, and disgusting fact that you still blame Riley, right? That you still think it's Riley's responsibility for what happened there. And what I find even more hilarious is that you go on to talk about how, you know, it was because he was so into self-harm and, you know, depression and everything. And then what, like a month later, you tweeted out about how you had blocked him, right? And how, like, what? Like, and you were bragging about it to people, and you said that the reason why you did it wasn't because of drama, but because you found it funny as fuck. Okay, so I don't believe anything that comes out of your gross and disgusting mouth, you absolute coward and monster.
Lit that shit bang.